Right, so I had a question about colocasias over winter and basically leave them in the ground. Is it a good idea? Well, obviously it depends on the species you've got. We all know pink china is sort of the standard cold hardy or UK winter hardy colocasia, but there are other types that I've found to be quite hardy to leave in the ground. So again, this is just my experience. Nothing is guaranteed, but there are several other sort of abstract species which are quite hard to get hold of, which are cold winter hardy. But again, this is just my experience with certain species, so I'll tell you what I've had success with leaving the ground and seem to come back every year for me. So this is the first one, burgundy stem. The leaves never get huge on these, but they are quite nice nonetheless. They're sort of a ruffled edge to the leaf. Obviously, as the name suggests, it's got a sort of burgundy stem on it, and I've found that these tend to come back every year for me. I have got this is actually one I know it looks like a pink china, but it isn't. This is actually one I bought from the supermarket as a Edo food crop, but I've left several of these in the ground and they come back every year, so I can't give you a species on that. But yeah, so burgundy stem comes back every year, no problem. We've already talked about pink china. That's a good solid one, and we've still got some colocasia in the bog filter to the little pond here. So this is the pink china. So the standard escalenta, colocasia escalenta, I found for me is pretty hardy. That comes back every year. I leave them in the ground. In this situation, they are just in pots in the bog filter, so I do lift these ones out and dry store them. But if they're in the ground, you give them a good mulch, they tend to be fine. They'll come back. So to be fair, the three species were just aforementioned, pink china, escalenta and burgundy stem, for me have come back every year. I know there are other types, which I think bikini teeny is one that will come back every year for you, and this one here, which is Fontisii or Fontisii. They're supposed to be quite hardy, so I've got one in the border, so I'm gonna leave that in the ground and see what that does over winter as well. But what I would say is a good rule of thumb, your black magic's definitely not. We've got a mojito there, which is going to be similar to the black magic, and they're not going to survive over winter, I don't think, unless you're in a really mild sort of dry part of the country. We've got that's a diamond head there. That's not going to be cold hardy at all. So you can dry store rhizomes or corms, but I've found with some of the fancier ones, like I say, with the black magic and probably the diamond head and definitely the mojitos, they're not gonna dry store well. So the best part, I mean, most years what I've done with them is kept them indoors as houseplants, and they don't do well as houseplants, but they just sort of tick over and sort of half die, then you can bring them out as soon as it's warm enough, get them in the greenhouse and get them started again. So they sort of go semi-dormant. They don't do well as house plants. But yeah, this year what I'm planning to do is I'll show you over here, I've got some in pots. So we have got, again, we've got a small Black Magic, Mojito, and what we got here, Coal Miner. Coal Miner is one that's allegedly hardy. Again, I reckon if you give it a good mulching, that might come back. Not tried and tested for me, but with these potted specimens which I've had in like a aquatic planter situations, they've been submerged in water all summer. I've obviously got them out now and let them dry out a little bit, and the plan with these ones for me is a little bit of an experiment, is to overwinter them in my summer house with a lot of other plants, keep them bone dry, and yeah, that is heated to a minimum of 4 degrees is the lowest temperature that I'll go in the summer house, because I've got a little heater in there set to come on, but it does warm up during the day. But again, I'm going to keep these bone dry and expect them to sort of die down, and hopefully that'll be just enough to get them to come back into life next year. So like I say, I'm not going to say this was going to be hardy for you, whatever species, because all I can say is the experience I've had with growing them and the ones that come back for me. And you know, that might be different experiences for other people in different parts of the country, or indeed different countries. But like I say, I mean, for me, I always say we're zone 8B, but if you're in the US, zone 8B may be a very different environment to what we get. We get sort of a long wet winter, where the zone B in 8B in Texas, for instance, could be a lot drier, so you'd probably get away with a lot of different species than we would here. But yeah, so as a roundup, for me, solid hardy colocasia to leave in the ground, pink China obviously, the burgundy stem definitely seems very hardy for me, and the standard green colocasia esculenta always comes back for me as well. So they're the three sort of fairly easy ones to come by that are going to be, I won't say 100% hardy, because you're always going to get that odd winter where it's really wet and cold, but yeah, so that is that. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.